Okay, it's 9 o'clock and we'll call the Barron County Board of Supervisors for Thursday, December 3rd, 2020 into session. We'll have roll call.
John Banks.
Yes.
Terry Lee.
Present.
Carolyn Bartlett. Here. Cam Fall.
Here.
Bill Schradel.
Present.
Gary Taxdahl.
Here.
Jim Gores.
Present.
Gary Nelson.
Here.
Roberta Mosentein.
Here.
Pete Olson.
Here.
Steve Johnson.
Here.
Carol Moen.
Here.
Eric Panier. No Eric. Louis Oki. Russ Rinzig.
Here.
Todd Gerlin.
Here.
Jerry McRoberts.
Here.
Mark Thompson.
Present.
Bud Hanson.
Here.
Stacy Wenzel.
Here.
Dana Heller.
Here.
Bob Anderson.
Here.
Stan Buchanan.
Here.
Don Horstman.
Present.
Bill Efforts.
Here.
Bert Skinner.
Here.
Dale Heineke.
Here.
Bob Rogers.
Here.
Oscar Scode.
Here.
Okay, so at this time, we have 28 of 29 present. ID and Cook County Clerk have complied with open meeting public notification laws. Meeting notices are posted on the electronic meeting notice board on the first and second floor of the government center and the main floor of the Justice Center. Hard copies in the public meeting folder just inside the clerk's office window. In addition, all 5 county newspapers have been notified. And this meeting was posted by Wendy Coleman on 11/24/20 at 1:02 p.m.
Thanks, Dan. Item number 2, the invocation will be given by Supervisor Hanson.
After he gets on tank. Good morning, Lord. We all understand you in different ways, but we all know you are listening. Thank you for this day. Thank you for life. Help us to use common sense to conquer COVID. Give us the patience to get through this pandemic. Thank you for, and please be with, those who care for us, the healthcare workers, social services personnel, law enforcement. Protect them as they protect us. Guide us as we finalize the plans and the financing for the highway building. Be with the highway crews as they work in all weather to keep us safe. Help us to remember that thankfulness is more than turkey. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, special matters and announcements. John Slake passed away on last Monday night, November 30th. John was previously on this board and he was the head of our Board of Adjustments. He was also the head of several organizations in our area, the fire and ambulance, the town parade, his church. He, was on the food pantry. He was one hell of a Santa Claus. He's going to be missed by a lot of the communities, and he's a good friend to me. So I would ask if we had a little moment of silence, please. Thank you. And Jeff, you've got a few items.
Yes, I do. Good morning, everyone. If you have time cards, please get those in to Jess just as soon as you possibly can. If this is your last meeting or whatever of the month, we want to get those processed and paid before the end of December. Get you all paid, actually. So just please keep that in mind to turn in your timesheet. Second, I do want to take a breath, and I want this board to personally express my thanks to Jody. We wouldn't be here today if she had not done the yeoman's work that she has done. Our Standard & Poor's rating was phenomenal. Sean will attest to that. Jody, I want to thank you personally for your work on the budget, coming in on a day off when your husband was home and helping me get through that Standard & Poor's rating. Thank you very much. I wanted the board to know that.
Small speech.
Second, there are good things continue to happen around here. Just Wendy, you that work on this Red Cross, we're now having a 2-day blood drive here at the county on January 28th and 29th. Red Cross keeps communicating to me. They like our building. They like that it's all on one floor. Jess is doing a great job. I know there was some trepidation from some board members, and rightfully so, about when we opened up the building to do this, but I think it's been very positive. When they're asking for another day, that tells you that we're meeting community needs, and that fits right into our strategic plan. So if you can give blood, we'd love to see you on January 28th and 29th. Sign up. If you need help, Jess will help you sign up electronically. That's all that I have. Thanks, Louis.
Item number 4, approve the agenda. Motion by Supervisor Olson, second by Supervisor McRoberts. Any concerns? Not, all those in favor of approving the agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Okay, that motion's carried. Item number 5, approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2020 meeting. Motion by Supervisor Hanson, seconded by Supervisor Mosentein. Any concerns on those? Not, all those in favor of approving the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by that same sign. That motion's carried. Number 6, public comment. I don't believe we had any. Okay. Item number 7, the resolution awarding the sale of $25,120,000 general obligation Highway Department bonds, Series 2020B, and I believe Sean Lentz was going to give a presentation to us. Morning, Sean.
Okay. Morning, Louis and supervisors. Very nice to see you this morning. I see Jody has our sale day report on the screen. Prior to going through the results of the sale that we did yesterday morning, I did want to take the board through the last time I was before you to today and some of the activity. Jeff already mentioned the rating, and just to update you on work has been done leading up to the excellent results that the county got on the sale of the bonds. I believe all of the supervisors received this document. Since I was last with you, we worked with the county staff on preparing this document. It's called an official statement. It's like a mutual fund perspective or prospectus or a stock prospectus. And it is the document that we send out to investors for them to use in putting their bids together. And it's also used as part of the bond rating process that we went through. And maybe, Jody, if you could go to that bond rating report, which is a couple of pages forward from where you're at. Perfect. I think as we were doing the planning for today's discussion on the results of the sale and yesterday's sale, I had mentioned to the county supervisors that we would be updating the rating. The county has had an excellent bond rating, and I would encourage all of you, when you have some time, if you haven't already, do read through the report. The rating that the county has and has maintained is AA. A AAA rating is the very best that you can get, and then under the Standard & Poor's scale, AA+, and we're at the AA level. And when you read through the report, what I think you'll recognize is the components that go into the rating. What you as a county, as elected officials and as staff, what you have control over, you are doing an excellent job in managing it. So your budgeting, your finances, your planning, your management. Those things are all highlighted in the document as strengths of the county. The other attributes that, well, why aren't we a AAA? They fall more into categories of what is the raw size of the county in terms of population, in terms of valuation? What is the wealth of the county in terms of the folks that live here? How diverse is the tax base? It isn't that any of those things are poor at all, they're not. It's just that when you compare Barron County to all the counties throughout the entire country, the other cities, villages, school districts, these are the things that aren't in your direct control, but they're part of the rating factor, and it's why you're not a AAA. So again, excellent results. The stable is always nice to see that they look at you not just staying solid today, but into the future as well. And so I would congratulate the county and echo what Jeff mentioned, that the preliminary work that we did with Jody leading us in that, in order to have this discussion with the rating agency, was excellent and really was a big part of maintaining that AA rating. So starting from that standpoint, Jody, if you wouldn't mind going a few pages further back to the bid tabulation. I think it's one, there we go. So when we went out for bids yesterday morning, we were able to relay to the bidders that the county had maintained their AA rating and that was affirmed. And we saw right from early yesterday morning that there was going to be a lot of bids, that a lot of bidders were signed up. And they were bidders not just from Wisconsin, not just from the Midwest, but from all over the country. And that's another benefit that you receive by having a really strong rating, is you attract attention to the sale of your bonds from a very wide audience. So we put it out for bids. We end up getting 12 bids back. And what you see on the first page here is the winning bidder, and it was Baird. Baird certainly has a presence in Wisconsin. This officially came from their New Jersey office. Then you'll see a long stream of, it's called a syndicate, so groups that are working with Baird in terms of buying the bonds and then reselling them. The bid itself, they gave us a price. We're asking for $25,120,000. They paid us a premium, so they're paying us more than we're asking, and that's that price of $26 million. And when we factor the price and then the rates and the reoffering yields, that's how we calculate that true interest rate. And the best bid had a true interest rate of, you can see of 1.53%. If you go through, Jody, just real briefly, the next couple of pages, you'll see the other bids. And what it'll show is that it was very competitive. We had a couple that were in that 150 range and then some in the 160s. And then the last bid out of Dallas was, the highest interest rate was at 1.84. Now, all those interest rates are excellent. And as again, if you look through the list, you'll see bidders from all across the country. But the competitive sale that we went through, staff and I recommended and the county board agreed, the difference between the winning bid and the bid with the interest rate of 1.84%, that translates into more than $1 million difference in terms of cost to the county. So when you look at this and you say, well, 1.84 sounds darn good, it is good, but you get this competitive process going on, and I think it benefited you very well here in that you saved from high to low bid. It's $1 million less in interest costs over the life of the issue. Jody, can we go forward to the next page? This exhibit is an exhibit that I had shared with you in the pre-sale report previously. And it's the exhibit that will show the repayment schedule for the proposed new bond issue over the next 20 years, ending in 2040. The column in purple represents the new repayment schedule with the best bid from Baird today with the interest, or yesterday with the interest rates. Now, you see, I mentioned that they were gonna pay us a premium. So what do we do as a county when we get that? Under state law, we need to put that into the debt service fund to make future payments. So the roughly $940,000 of the total premium is gonna go into the debt service fund. What we had targeted in working with Jody and Jeff and the rest of the county staff is we wanted that net total P&I for 2022 to be $1,140,000. Because we got that premium bid, we put that 940 in the bank. We'll use that to make the payment in 2022. But because we targeted that 1,140,000, it allowed us to move more principal payment up into 2022 to be able to pay the bonds back a little bit faster, which was another benefit of the bid that we received. The other thing I wanted to point out here is when we were doing the planning, the estimated runs that we shared with you, this same exhibit in the pre-sale report, the total P&I column there after the 2022 was around $1.7 million. And again, with this interest rate today, with the rate of around 1.53%, that allowed us to reduce the future payment because we're going to pay less interest because of the lower results today that were received. So the payments in 23 through 40 are going to be about $1,580,000 a year. So again, because of the excellent bid that the county received, that total payment, the annual payment that the county will be making in future budget years to pay back the highway department buildings is significantly less. And you can see that also in that total P&I column. We had estimated in the pre-sale report, and we were conservative, that should be said, about $31.8 million. And if you look at the sale results there, yep, Jody's got highlighting it there, $29,600,000 over the life of the issue. The last item I'd like to just mention on this exhibit, Jody, if you wouldn't mind going back up a little bit to the top. The interest rates that the county received, again, excellent rates. We did include the ability for the county to make a prepayment at your option. So this isn't the bondholder saying you have to prepay us because interest rates have gone up. This is the county having the option, if interest rates are lower in the future, that you could refinance. And that date is in 2028, November of 2028. So starting in November of 2028, if the county chose to do so, you could make prepayments on this to either pay it off faster, using maybe like if a lot of folks like to pay a little bit more on their home mortgage every year, or if lower interest rates were available, we could refinance starting in 28 and hopefully, if that was the case, reduce the debt payments even lower. On the other side, let's say 3 years, 5 years from now, the interest rates, instead of being 1.5%, like we're talking about for a 20-year shoot for the county now, let's say they're 4%. You don't have to change a thing. If you accept the best bid from Baird today, you will pay this and can pay this through the whole life of the issue because you will have locked into the interest rates with acceptance of the bid. Okay. Jody, could you go to that last exhibit then? Great. This is another one that we shared with the rating agency, and I think we've discussed this before, but I just want to reiterate it in terms of the whole plan coming together. What you see on the chart is the existing debt that the county already has outstanding and the results of this bond sale for the $25 million today, all together on a single chart over the 40-year repayment, or 20-year, repayment out to 2040. The way this had been set up through the discussions with the board is your payments in 2020, 21 and 22 with the new issue are approximately at about the same level. Look, this year at about 3 million, for next year, 2021, a little bit less. 22 is going to stay in that range of just a little bit less than 3 million in total principal and interest on all the debt, including the new issue. And then starting in 23, really the only debt you'll have outstanding, the way your debt is set up right now, is the highway building bonds. And that payment, as I mentioned from the previous exhibits, can be about 1,580,000 a year. So couple things. One, either in the future, your debt levy is going to drop dramatically, or if through your capital planning process, the county determines that you do need to do some additional projects, bridges, roads, whatever it might be. The county does have some capacity in this model through the planning that the county has done to be able to add that additional debt, if you choose it, starting in 2023 without having the debt levy go up. So you've done, I think this is really good planning for you as a board, as elected officials, for staff, for all the department heads. If it becomes necessary that you believe additional debt would be required to finance capital projects of the county, you would have some capacity to do that without spiking your levy up from where it currently is. And I think that's a testament to the bond rating, that this sort of planning, even with doing a legacy project like a highway department building, you still have a structure like this where you have flexibility to do other things without having a dramatic impact on the levy. So with that, the other item that was updated based on the winning bid was the resolution, and I believe this was included in your packet from last week. What would be needed today in order to accept the bid and lock into the interest rates that we just discussed, the winning bid from Baird, is approval of the resolution. From my standpoint, I would certainly recommend that the county board take that action and approve that winning bid from Baird and approve the resolution. But before taking that action, if I can be of assistance on any questions, please let me know.
I just got two quick ones that we call. Well, we use Baird as for a bonding there in the Turtle Lake school project 20 some years ago. And anyhow, I thought they're based out of Janesville. I don't know. Is that different now or?
Yeah, the folks from Baird that I have the most contact with are primarily in Milwaukee. But I do think they have a presence a strong presence in Wisconsin, but they do state or countrywide as well. It may be just kind of their internal structure, why the bid was listed as coming from New Jersey. That it was, I think it was New Jersey on there, but it's all the same firm.
Well, and the other thing there, I did this with my farm, and it's different. We took the same amount of money that I usually made on a monthly payment, but I took the first half and I paid it 2 weeks early, and then paid the last half on the date. By doing that, I saved enough interest that I paid off my farm in 4.5 years quicker. What it amounts to is that something that would be possible for us to do?
You cannot, your payments, I'll just take a step back. I showed the payments on the screen as your annual payments in total. The way the county will make those payments is in May and November, you'll make interest payments. And in November each year, you'll pay the principal portion. So that's the way the bonds will get repaid. From the closing of the issue, which is set for later this month in December, through that November 1st of 2028, you can't make any prepayments. But starting in November of 2028, you could take action like you're describing if you wanted to accelerate the payments at that point. That would be an option available starting in November of 2028.
Okay.
Looks like that our debt is going to be our debt payment's going to be about half of it is now.
Yes, that's exactly right. And again, it's a really positive situation, in my opinion, for the county, in that these kind of big projects, I had the pleasure of working with you guys with the Justice Center many years ago. These kind of projects don't come along every day. When we did the Justice Center, I think we had a debt structure that was very level, but if we added any new debt, the levy was going to go up. Because of good planning, your situation with this is starting in 2023, if no debt is added, your payment can go down. If over the next couple of years, you guys determine, well, we're going to need to do some borrowing for street, bridges, whatever it might be, you have some capacity to add that debt without having the levy go up from where it is currently. So it gives you a number of different options to do what you as a board of supervisors believe is in the best interest.
For the last 10 years, we've all kind of always said that the chances of interest getting less are pretty remote, but it seems
They keep doing it.
happening.
Yeah, we are really hitting the market at a very good time with this. That large number of bidders, so there's a big demand out there for bonds that like this tax exempt long-term bonds. So we've benefited from that. But I share that thought too. I've kind of waited, when are the rates going to go up? And fortunately for us, they haven't thus far.
John?
We tried to do this locally at first. It didn't work. So what happened? It came in too much interest, too high, or was it chopped up with various, what happened?
Yeah, as the board will recall, our first, because myself and the county staff had received a lot of interest from banks in the county about buying the bonds. I think what ended up occurring there is the amount of bonds, the 25 million for a local institution to take that entire issue on, was a little bit more than they wanted to absorb. And I understand that. And I think they also looked at the interest rates that they could see in the market, and charging the rates that we're seeing here today, for them, it just wasn't a fit. You might recall, and Jody, if you wouldn't mind going back to that bid tabulation for a second. The banks did, I think it was 5 of them, as I recall, did get together with, where is it? Right there, Bankers Bank. It's a little bit below where your icon is.
Oh, right here.
Right there. And they had suggested that instead of one bank buying the whole thing, that maybe they could work with Bankers Bank and the 5 banks and maybe work together. That group did put in a bid today. I think the interest rate they suggested to us back in early November was a little bit lower than 2%, as I recall. But they put in a bid at 1.6. So you can see that they were very competitive, but going through the competitive sale process and with the strong rating and going nationwide, they were a little bit higher than the winning bid from Baird. All that being said, I will say it's going to be likely, John, that Baird and that long list of syndicate members will be reaching out to the local institutions to see if they are interested in buying some of the bonds for their own portfolio. So I would be surprised if that doesn't occur, at least to some degree. Yeah.
Any further questions for Sean? Jim?
I just make a motion there that we approve the bidding of the 25 million or 26 million, whatever it was there, to Beard Associates.
Okay, second by Supervisor Heller. Okay, so there's a motion and a second for resolution awarding the sale of $25,120,000 general obligation highway department bonds, series 2020B. Now, this will be a roll call vote, and it does require 3/4 of the board, which is 22 supervisors. So, Dan, would you do the roll call?
Harry Lee,
Yes.
Carolyn Bartlett. Yes. Pam Fall,
Yes.
Bill Schradel,
Yes.
Gary Taxdahl,
He said yes.
You say yes, Gary? Right.
Thumbs up.
Jim Gores,
All right.
Yes.
Gary Nelson,
Yes.
Roberta Mosety,
Yes.
Pete Olson,
Yes.
Steve Johnson,
Yes.
Carol Moen,
Yes.
Eric Panier is absent. Louis Oki,
Yes.
Russ Rinzig,
Yes.
Todd Gerlin,
Yes.
Jerry McRoberts,
Yes.
Marv Thompson,
Yes.
Bun Hanson,
Yes.
Stacy Wenzel.
Yes.
We've lost our connection.
Yes.
Dana Heller,
Yes.
Bob Anderson,
Yes.
Dan Buchanan,
Yes.
Don Horstman,
Yes.
Bill Efforts,
Yes.
Bert Skinner,
Yes.
Dale Heineke,
Yes.
Bob Rogers,
Yes.
Oscar Schob,
Yes.
John Banks.
Yeah.
Okay, that motion carried on 28 present and 1 absent.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sean, you did a great job. Okay, item number 8, the resolution actually authorizing the highway facilities rebuild. On that one, we will need a 2/3 or 20 supervisors to pass that. Could I get a motion to pass that? Motion by Supervisor Olson, second by Supervisor Schradel. Okay, is there any questions or concerns? If not, we'll take a roll call vote, and again, we need 2/3.
Carolyn Bartlett. Yes. Pam Fall.
Yes.
Bill Schradel.
Yes.
Gary Taxell.
Yes.
Jim Gores.
Yes.
Gary Nelson.
Yes.
Roberta Mosentine.
Yes.
Pete Olson.
Yes.
Steve Johnson.
Yes.
Carol Moen.
Yes.
Eric Panier absent. Louis Oki.
Yes.
Russ Rinzig.
Yes.
Todd Gerlin.
Yes.
Jerry McRoberts.
Yes.
Marv Thompson.
Yes.
Bud Hanson.
Yes.
Stacy Wenzel.
Yes.
Dana Heller.
Yes.
Bob Anderson.
Yes.
Dan Buchanan.
Yes.
Don Horstman.
Yes.
Bill Efforts.
Yes.
Bert Skinner.
Yes.
Dale Heineke.
Yes.
Bob Rogers.
Yes.
Oscar Schob.
Yes.
John Banks.
Yes.
Terry Louis.
Yes.
Okay, that's again a 28 present and 1 absent. That carries.
Thank you. Item number 9, consideration of Ellers as an investment manager in our highway bond proceeds and disbursements of the funds. You want to take that?
Sure. Can I just stand?
Sure.
What I'm asking the county board to do is make a simple motion to allow one of Sean's associates to take the 25.1 million or 26, whatever the cash amount is, take that money and invest it for us. And they do this for other large bond proceeds. Sean knows about this. Bonnie is in agreement. We've met with the people from Ellers. I highly recommend that you do this. Let them manage the cash. They'll work with CBS Squared. They'll get a cash flow report from CBS Squared. They'll take the money that we don't need immediately, invest that by state statute into CDs or something very secure. And then as we need the money, they'll transfer the money from their Ellers account, if you will, to our operating account at Sterling Bank, and then we'll pay the bills, so we've got the track. I highly recommend you do this. Their investment people are getting 2 to 3% on investments, and we're getting 0.10. They manage a lot of money. We'll have an individual account. It's something that they do. Bob Swirsky from CBS Squared is fully apprised of this. He's I've worked with Ellers. We can do this. It just needs a simple motion to allow the investment of the funds to happen with Ellers and that way. So I'll take questions if there are any. It's really rather quite simple.
They charge us 0.12% of the interest or the proceeds of the earnings.
Right, and not to exceed $40,000 for their total charge, but they're talking about getting us up to $155,000 more cash flow than we can get from us investing in ourselves, because they have the connections that we don't to get this done.
Just a quick one. Now that we've approved this there, when will we be getting the funds?
December 22nd.
December 22nd, okay.
So we're gonna have from December 22nd to sometime in March or April, Jim, before we'll need that
Right,
first cash
right.
disbursement. So that's why, another reason why I'd like to have these people do it. They'll collateralize it. They do this every day. There's a whole group. This is what they do every day of the week. So
Supervisor Rogers.
I move that we appoint Ehlers as investment manager for the highway bond proceeds and disbursement of the funds.
Is there a second? John, is that a second? Supervisor Banks, a second to that motion. Is there any further discussion? Not, all those in favor of appointing Ellers as the investment manager for our highway bond proceeds indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Yeah, passed unanimously. Thank you. Item number 10, resolution, designation of excess funds balance. That, as we talked about this at the last board meeting, but we got sidetracked a little bit and didn't actually, do the resolution and pass that. And what we're talking about is that we had 350,000 of excess funds, and 176,000 of that 350 was going to buy the Federated building, which is on the highway shop adjacent to it, and it's all gonna be part of the build out of the highway shop. And then the balance of that, the 174,000, is going to go toward this auditorium redo that we're gonna, the plans that you've looked at in the past, they will be going to the property committee on December 7th with the monetary price and the final layout. And I think what changed a little bit is, from what most of you have seen, is that it'll be a U-shaped, but the U will be coming this way. It'll be open right here so that Jeff and John and I and Jody will be sitting up here so we can look out at the crowd as well as, and then there'll be just one big U for the board members, and it'll be hardwired with all the electronics you need, be permanently set in there. So. Okay. Can I get a motion for that? Motion by Supervisor Renzig, second by Supervisor Heineke. Is there any further discussion? Okay, there, we're gonna need a roll call vote again, and we'll need 2/3. Yeah,
Pam Paul,
Yes.
Bill Schradel,
Yes.
Gary Taxell,
yes.
Jim Gores,
Yes.
Gary Nelson,
Yes.
Roberta Bozentein,
Yes.
Pete Olson,
Yes.
Steve Johnson,
Yes.
Carol Moen,
Yes.
Eric Kendrick is absent, Louis Oki,
Yes.
Russ Rinzig,
Yes.
Todd Gerlin,
Yes.
Jerry McRoberts,
Yes.
Barb Thompson,
Yes.
Bun Hansen,
Yes.
Stacy Wenzel,
Yes.
Dana Heller,
Yes.
Bob Anderson,
Yes.
Dan Buchanan,
Yes.
Don Horstman,
Yes.
Bill Efforts,
Yes.
Bert Skinner,
Yes.
Dale Heineke,
Yes.
Bob Rogers,
Yes.
Oscar Schob,
Yes.
Don Dyke,
Yes.
Terry Lee,
Yes.
Carolyn Bartlett. Yes. Okay, let's get a 28 yes and 1 absent.
Thank you, everybody. Pass. Okay, and then item number 11 is a resolution supporting the application for 2021 grant funds from the Wisconsin Department of Justice. That's a kind of an annual one that our sheriff's department goes after. It's in the amount of $16,508, and we again will need a 2/3 vote on this one to pass. Okay, a motion by Supervisor Skinner, second by Supervisor Buchanan. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll go roll call vote again.
Bill Schradel,
Yes.
Gary Taxell, Jim
Yes.
Gores,
Yes.
Gary Nelson,
Yes.
Roberta Bozentein,
Yes.
Pete Olson,
Yes.
Steve Johnson,
Yes.
Carol Moen,
Yes.
Eric Kendrick is absent, Louis Oki,
Yes.
Russ Rinzig,
Yes.
Todd Gerlin,
Yes.
Jerry McRoberts,
Yes.
Barb Thompson,
Yes.
Bun Hansen,
Yes.
Stacy Wenzel,
Yes.
Dana Heller,
Yes.
Bob Anderson,
Yes.
Dan Buchanan,
Yes.
Don Horstman,
Yes.
Bill Efforts,
Yes.
Bert Skinner,
Yes.
Dale Heineke,
Yes.
Bob Rogers,
Yes.
Oscar Schob,
Yes.
Don Banks,
Yes.
Terry Lee,
Yes.
Carolyn Bartlett,
Yes.
Pam Paul.
Yes.
Okay, let's get a 28 yes and 1 absent.
Good, thank you. Okay, item number 12, resolution to amend the supervisory district due to the annexation to the city of Rice Lake. You wanna?
That's just a simple majority, it's just annexation from the city of Rice Lake into Supervisor McRoberts, there's nobody living there, it's open property, which I believe we all understand is gonna be built into homes in the future.
Motion by Supervisor McRoberts, was that?
Yes.
Second by Supervisor Hanson. Any further discussion? Not, all is in favor of that resolution to amend the supervisory district due to annexation to the city of Rice Lake, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 13, the Community Development Block Grant for COVID-19 funding for the Salvation Army Transitional Living. Dave Armstrong, our Economic Development Director, will inform us what's going on.
Good morning, everyone. We've been working with, as part of the housing initiative, we've been working for a transitional housing. We need probably 2 of them, but this would fill the bill on one. We're looking at an old nursing home on TT, south of 8. We've worked with the bank, it's bank owned at this time. They put a bunch of money into the larger facility. There's a separate home almost on the property there that needs more money. Community development block grants come from DOA. Ultimately, they come from HUD. This one's a special fund, COVID fund, that was funded, oh boy, probably last June. And I've been calling them every Monday since June to see when they're going to come up with rules for it. They finally did about a month ago. We've been working with them and the Salvation Army on this transitional housing. The way the CDBG monies work typically is you have meetings with them and then they tell you to apply if they think you're going to get a shot at getting the money. Well, they told us to apply. One of the key features of it, though, is it's pass-through. All right, so unit of government has to apply for it. It's passed through from CDBG to the unit of government and ultimately to the Salvation Army. There's no clawbacks because this is a special fund. But one thing we will do is I talked with Jeff and we're going to work with John to come up with a development agreement with them. Just because we've got it laid out of, all right, here's what it's going to be, here's how it's going to work. And for $500,000, we want to get that, you know, what we're looking at. So we'll work with them for an agreement on that. Any questions?
How many will that accommodate?
Once they get that house rebuilt with it, there should be 27. And transitional housing is typically up to a year. So Benjamin House, for example, will be some people that come from Benjamin House. We're going to have a chemical dependency aspect to it as well. Aftercare, like almost a halfway house type thing. So that may come from other areas, drug treatment programs here, that type of thing. So.
Supervisor Olson?
So, is the Salvation Army going to handle the operating
Correct.
expenses going forward?
Yep, they've already allocated the budget dollars for case manager and somebody to run the operation. And then we've also applied for a $40,000 grant from WIDA to help with the renovation too on top of it.
Dave, you want to explain how this is a key piece in the puzzle of getting people from, you know, dire straits to a job?
Correct. Yeah, I've got the jobs for them. I got more than enough jobs for them. And that'll be a part of the requirement of it is, you know, they live in here, they got to work full time, they pay rent. So, I mean, it's not a gimme. Granted, it's going to be a little bit less than the market rent. But basically what we've got right now, especially if you look at the chemical dependency aspect of it, I went through treatment a long time ago. You don't go from treatment back to your old friends. I mean, it's a disaster at that point. Your chance of staying straight ain't there. You go into a facility like this where you get the support extra, you build a different life, it helps, right? Same thing with the Benjamin House piece. We've got a shortage of landlords that frankly that will take them when they come out of Benjamin House. Worked with a gal in Cumberland who's great. She's got a lot of apartment buildings throughout the county. But she came back to me a couple of weeks before I got COVID, so everything's pre-COVID because I lost like a couple of weeks. So about a month ago, she came to me and said, I can't take any more people from Benjamin House. They're just destroying my apartments. And I said, well, wait a minute now. We got to figure out some place for these people. Well, this will be that place type of thing. Now, Benjamin House does case management inside, but once they get out, then it's a little tougher for them because they got one case manager. That's the one thing that Salvation Army is going to add to this is the case management. And then CCP, Community Connections to Prosperity, the group that's out there, we're going to work with them on the mentoring program on top of that so we can work with, and it's all about kind of building a different lifestyle type of thing. But we need a place for that.
Any further questions? Supervisor Fredo?
Yeah, so most of these people that would be coming in there,
Some may not, but I've got the job sure.
Any further questions? If not, we need a motion to allow Barron County to apply for this CDB COVID-19 block grant and then work with the Salvation Army to develop the housing that we needed. Okay, motion by Supervisor Gores, second by Supervisor Thompson. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of passing, allowing the Barron County to work with Salvation Army, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, passed unanimously. Thank you. Item number 14, quarterly financials. I believe that's you, Jody.
Okay. We're going to be looking at third quarter financials, so that ran through September 30th. So this year we had concerns. Overall, as a county, we're doing really well. So there is just a couple of things that we'll get to where you'll see that there is, an issue. But I think by the end of the year, I think overall, we're going to be sitting good. So looking at revenues, for 2020 are up about 2.7 million from 2019, or an increase of about 5.7%. This is broken down by function. So you can see taxes and transfer fees are up about 354,000. That's an increase in tax levy. And then sales tax this year is doing really well. We actually are at an all-time high. We're about 100,000 right now ahead of last year. So, and at the beginning of COVID, some state estimates were projecting that we were going to see, just huge losses. So, yeah, it's been wonderful. So far so good. So hopefully, December we can, finish strong, and we can be up from last year. Intergovernmental revenues is up about 1.6 million. Part of that is funding due to COVID. With our COVID costs, we have about 1.6 million in grants that we've been able to use. So we were seeing some reimbursements by the end of September, but the bulk of that's going to come in the fourth quarter. CCS MA claims were filed more timely this year. If you remember last year in 2019, we had switched consortiums for CCS. And so it took a little while as far as that billing module that we had to have set up to bill to the states. So we ended up billing a little bit later. But now this year, we've been able to bill right on time. So that has factored into this increase. And then also the indirect cost reimbursement from the other departments back to the general fund. Licenses and permits, fines, forfeitures, and penalties, really consistent with last year. People are paying their fines. Zoning fees and such have been strong. That part has been going really well. Public charges for services, it up about 556,000. That is an increase in the recycling surcharge from 2019 to 2020. We went from $24 a parcel to $28 a parcel. Also, tipping fees at the waste to energy plant increased as of January 1st of 2020. And then there was just a timing thing with an ADRC MA payment, so that we received earlier than in 2019. Intergovernmental charges for services. This is your highway projects, the work that we do with the municipalities. We're seeing a decrease of about 420,000, but that's just timing. So, every year, depending on the size of the projects, billing is just happening as things get finished. So we expect that to turn around in the fourth quarter here. Miscellaneous revenues. Same thing for the most of this is the highway projects, but the one thing where we are seeing a significant decrease in revenue is the interest on securities. It was in March, the local government investment pool, I think we were like over 2%. And this last month it was 0.1. is what we're getting on our investments. So, I mean, it's just dropped substantially. So as Jeff, mentioned with, having Ellers handle our investments for the highway, Ellers has much better capabilities, in other places where we can, have that money so we can get a good return. Other financing sources up about 1.8 million. This has to do with the timing of the Justice Center financing, or refinancing. We refinanced in March, so we got that money. All that revenue to pay those off came in. We paid off the other, and typically we're just using tax levy. So that's just basically a timing thing, kind of one of those outliers for this year. So that's where you get your 2.7 million of increase in revenues. Any questions with revenues? Okay, moving on. Expenditures. They are increased about 5 million or 11.46%. You'll see that most of this is timing issues. So general government, up about 162,000. That's just basically COLAs for those general fund departments. Public safety is actually seeing a decrease, and that's decrease in training costs. Nobody's going anywhere for training this year, so we are saving quite a bit of money across the county for that. They've had a decrease in overtime. They've had some health insurance decreases, and then also your inmate food costs. There's not as many people being housed in the jail right now, and so we're seeing some savings there. Public Works, 495,000. That's just, again, timing and the types of projects that are being done, and so some of that we're gonna see, everything come together in period 4. Health and Human Services, an increase of about 986,000. This is where we are tracking all of our COVID expenses, the Route to Recovery grant, and then several grants through public health. And so most of that is going to be offset with revenue that's going to be coming in the fourth quarter. Also, there's just, their COLAs, and so that's what's making up that increase. Culture, recreation, and education, we're seeing a decrease basically in trail projects, and that could be timing or just the type of projects. Conservation and development, up about 312,000. Most of that is at the waste to energy plant with their COLAs. They've also have some work in progress. We haven't been able to capitalize their water treatment system that is almost done. And so then that will be coming out of the expenses and will actually be going on the balance sheet. And then their depreciation is also up this year. Also seeing a slight increase in the land services, just their COLAs for their employees. Capital outlay up about 316,000. Basically in the departments for maintenance technology, and then that highway facility engineering, probably towards the end of September, we were probably had about $100,000 in costs with CBS Squared for their design. The other part of that is put a new roof on the Justice Center this year. So that's increased a little bit as some technology costs. Debt service, again, this is that timing of those bond payments we had to pay. We got that money in, that went back out the door to pay off for the Justice Center. And then typically, like Sean had said, our big bond payments are in November of each year, and we paid that in. We paid off the Justice Center for that refinancing back in March. And so that's a timing issue that, is going to be a wash by the end of the year. Any questions with expenditures? Okay, just looking at the summary. We are seeing... actually, it's looking like a loss of, almost 1.2 million. Fund balance, this is why it's so important to have fund balance. That's, when the revenues don't come in, fund balance takes care of, paying the bills. And the thing is, again, it's just a timing issue. So by the end of the year, it's going to be a wash because of those bond payments. And then also, as the highway department is completing all of those projects and things, everything's coming together now. It's not snowing yet. So there's going to be a lot going on in their books here in the fourth quarter. Any further questions? Okay. Should I just go on?
No, I just want to make a comment. a lot of good things are happening in this county and as indicative of what just happened with the interest rate we got on our borrowing. And it makes the county board of supervisors look good, but we look good because of all the department heads and the Barron County staff. I mean, they just do an excellent job. And the departments work together, highway department, our waste energy, they're generating outside revenues, as is the sheriff's department somewhat, but the sheriff's department, ADRC, the Health and Human Services, with all this COVID expense, they've done an excellent job of going out and obtaining grants and controlling their expenses. So I just want to acknowledge what our Barron County department heads and employees do for this county. So thank you. Go ahead, Jody.
And I will attest to that too, because all the department heads, they are all wonderful to work with. Every single one of them. We've just, I don't know, we're very blessed in this county to have such a good team. Going on, we'll take a look at 2019 audit. Typically, I present this like in October, but because of COVID, their deadlines, the auditor's deadlines had been pushed back to the end of the year. So that's why we're doing this a little bit late. But some of this probably might make more sense because of some of the different conversations we've been having. So you have the book in front of you. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. We also have, that is just the summary version. This actually is the whole thing. So if anybody would want a copy of this, I can email it. We can get you a hard copy if you want to, look into anything deeper. We also have the single audit, which is all of our grants. And so this gives a lot more detail of those also. So just let me know. And for those attending virtually, I will email you a copy of this, what I'll be presenting, so you'll have that as well. So we had another really good year as far as the audit goes. We were given, again, an unmodified audit opinion, which is the highest that we can get. There. So I'm just going to highlight just some of the high points here. We still, with our internal controls, which is our checks and balances, just to make sure that there's always more than one set of eyes on everything, we do continue to get the significant deficiency of a limited segregation of duties. This is not to the level of an actual audit finding, but it's just a disclaimer basically to just let the reader know that we don't, in some of our offices, we don't have the amount of staff that to always ensure that there's more than one set of eyes on things. Now, because of that, we have other things that we do. The auditors do different testing in specific areas. We have 3 county auditors on staff that we can, help with different things and such. But this is just something that most of the counties around here have this verbiage in their audit. We have been working over probably like the last 5 years, just really diving into a different function each year and determining if there is a limited segregation of duties. We have went through our journal entries, reconciliation of treasurer's cash, accounts payable. Last year we did payroll, and now we will start on actual receipting. We saved receipting for last because that's where the cash comes in, and that's going to be the hardest to try and get things tightened up so we are able to get rid of this finding. Truth be told, I don't know if we're ever going to get rid of this finding. Some counties have just said we're not doing it. And so then what happens is the State Department of Health Services, who is the ones that had asked us to get rid of this, then they basically just kind of put it back on the county of, well, if there's a problem, if there's embezzlement or anything, it's kind of on you. And, then at that point, they could risk of losing funding. I would like to go through the whole exercise from start to finish, because if there's some areas that we can tighten things up, let's do it. So it's been a slow process, but, we are getting a little bit further every year. I'm expecting the receipting piece to probably take a couple of years to go through all of the departments. And we're going to try and put in as many mechanisms as possible to see that that we're okay. And most of the departments are okay with the cash because they have 2 people doing their deposits, and all of the money is going to the treasurer's office. We have a lot of checks and balances, but there probably are a few things out there that we're going to have to try and figure out. So stay tuned with that. Any questions with our segregation of duties? Okay. Compliance. We were found to be in compliance with the requirements of the laws, the regulations, with our contracts and our grants. They did not identify any deficiencies in the internal controls. They helped us process the following reports: the audit report. We have a financial report Form A that gets filed in May and in July, and a tax report, and the federal data collection form that was extended to December 31st of this year. The formal communications, this is just basically their requirements of what they need to do as an audit firm. And so they have we'll talk about the different things that they go through. Accounting policies, there were no new accounting policies that were adopted, and everything, didn't change during 2019. It stayed the same and it was fine. They noted that no transactions entered where there was a lack of authoritative guidance. They also found everything had been accounted for in the proper periods. The accounting estimates, we have estimates that we need to do, especially with depreciation and with some of our actuarial things with our pensions. And they found that our estimates and our assumptions to be reasonable. Financial statement disclosures, they found all of our disclosures to be neutral, consistent, and clear. There were no significant difficulties in dealing with the management. We get along real well with our auditors. There was no uncorrected misstatements, nothing that we identified and nothing that they identified that needed to be corrected. And there were no corrected misstatements that they had to fix because of through the audit procedures either. Again, no disagreements with management. Let's see. We could, if we didn't like something that the auditor suggested or whatever, we could go out for a second opinion. They just disclosed that, there were no second opinions that they knew of. We did not go out for a second opinion on anything. Significant issues, just those limited segregation of duties. The next section here is just basically talking about the required supplementary information and the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. That's our grants. This section is just basically explaining that if you're going to use our audit for something, you really should look at the full financial statements as a whole instead of just the summary, so you can see a true picture. And so this is that's their requirements. They always put in new accounting standards, GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board. These are the rules that we have to follow that are coming down the pike. Some affect us, some don't. We have some that will be coming December 31st of 2020 that we will be working through, and then also 2021, and I think 2022 is here also. Some of these actually have been pushed off to 2021 and 2022 because of COVID. So those are just different things that we have to have on the radar. Then going through and actually looking at some numbers. So the general fund really strong at the end of 2019. You can see that we had over 16 million in cash and investments. Our receivables, the assets up here, assets are what we own. So we have the receivables, money that's due to us, advances from other funds. This would be from the highway department. Other assets, that's basically prepaid expense of things that were paid out in 2019, but actually booked then in 2020. Liabilities is what we owe. So that's our payables. That's what we owe to other people. And then our fund balance, in a perfect world, your assets less your liabilities equal your fund balance, and you hope that your assets are much more than your liabilities. And we do have a very healthy fund balance. Some things are earmarked for specific purposes. But the unassigned, which is right here, that 9.7 million, during the budget process, when we were talking about that excess fund balance, that's where that number is. So our unassigned fund balance is supposed to be between 25 and 33%. It actually came back at 43%. And so through the budget process, when you approved that 1.1 million goes to highway for STP projects, things like that, that's what we did to draw down those dollars to get to 33%. Any questions with fund balance? Special revenue funds. Not all of the departments are in the general fund. Typically, you put them in the general fund unless there's specific restrictions that you can't, and a lot of that has to do with grant funding. So you can see that Health and Human Services, Child Support, Aging, ADRC, they all have their own funds. And what works out with that then is they're able to keep that fund balance in their fund at the end of the year. There are fund balance restrictions for Health and Human Services, ADRC, and Child Support where they have specific amounts. So if they have more at the end of the year, it goes back to the general fund. If they're short, then the general fund has to make them whole. And typically, the general fund supports all of the departments. So if any department would have a deficit in the end of the day, the general fund has to make them whole. So you can see we have healthy fund balances with all of those. There's no concerns there. Debt service, we levy and it gets paid out at the end of the year. And so there's just a few dollars, hanging out there, about $10,000 at the end of the year for debt service. Capital projects, we had a year-end balance of about 1.6 million. If you remember at the end of when we passed the 2020 budget, like about $1 million in excess fund balance was put in there to keep that going because each year the capital improvement fund is not fully funded. Also, you see that $303,000 that we started using in 2020 for the design for the highway fund. Waste to energy. Waste to energy is just kind of fun to look at. If you look at their change in that position for over the last 3 years, they have just really done well. They've been making a lot of upgrades out there, just excellent leadership. And so things have been going really, really well since the county, took over the management back in 2017. And highway continues to do well. You can see, over the years, they're changing that position. It just, every year they're doing really well. And what works out well for their budget is we're able to use fund balance that as they have these increases and you're changing that position, we're able to take some of that and put it towards future years' budgets to help with highway construction costs. Long-term obligations, these are our bonds. This is going to be changing significantly now for 2020. I'm going to look a lot different next year. And then the other thing that we have for long-term obligations is our sick and vacation vested leave. And so what that basically is if the county shut their doors today, we have the money available to make all of the employees whole with the sick and vacation that they have on the books. And so there's a lot of counties that don't have that. I think there's fewer counties that are in a situation like we're in than not. So every year at the end of the year, we make the adjustments. And so, we're sitting really well with that. And I think that's it. That's it. Any questions? Yes.
I believe you mentioned Health and Human Resources and maybe a couple other ones. There's something about their doing their own fundings. Do they have their own a little accountant and then they give you the report or what? How's that work?
In the finance department,
Yeah.
we have Heidi Savinsky. She is the lead financial person for Health and Human Services, for the ADRC, and for Child Support.
Okay.
And so she's the one that's, working in those funds, generating the monthly reports, doing the budgeting, things like that, preparing the audit work papers for those 3 funds. So did that answer your question?
I think so. So she's actually in your office.
Yes, she's
Yeah,
in,
Jim,
yep,
like when we have our COVID meetings, she'll be on that and she'll update everybody, hey, here's the grant, money we have left that we can use, you know, she stays on top of all that so that we don't have a big, bunch of expenses we can't pay.
I wasn't questioning, the validity of it. I was just questioning of how it worked.
Yep, she takes care of those. And then for the most part, we do have some bookkeepers in a couple of the departments. There is a bookkeeper in aging, and she, handles, most of the day-to-day things, sending the bills up to get processed, the clerk of court has their own, and also the sheriff's department. So we do have some that are out in those other departments, but most of the finance things are in our office, and there's 7 of us. So there's, a highway person. There's also other people in the finance department that handle, paying the bills weekly and different things like that. So,
Okay, no, I just want to know how it worked.
Don?
I think we need to give Jody a special thanks for all she does and her interaction with the auditors and everything. I mean, I know she doesn't take credit for it, but I'm sure what she does is making it go smoothly with them, and I think that's something we need to thank her for.
thank you. It's a team effort. It really is a team effort.
Any further questions for Jody?
Jody? Just one. Do you have any idea how much money we've spent on COVID yet? I mean, do you ballpark figure or anything?
Boy, I think we have spent, we've spent the $755,000 for route to recovery. And we have gotten like over half of that so far. There are other pots of money in Health and Human Services that we've tapped into. I don't have specific numbers right now. I mean, we could certainly show you at the next board meeting if you wanted to see.
Yeah, let's do it then.
Yeah,
COVID expenditure updates.
sure.
Put that on for suggestions for future agenda items. Any further questions for Jody? Okay, thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Okay, number 16, report from the county administrator.
I'm not gonna do the WCA comparisons. We've seen enough financial stuff today, so we'll all be sleeping, including me. Jody did a great job. Auditorium upgrades, the chairman's done a good job in discussing those. As far as our work comp renewal and mod factor, we did renew with Wisconsin County Mutual. We own that corporation, and we're one of the 42 counties now that own that. Our mod factor is a bit high. It's a bit high because in 2017 and 18, we had 2 large claimants, of which neither one of them were our fault. They were accidents when our employees were on the job. One was an uninsured motorist, one was an underinsured motorist who passed away, and there was no money in the estate, so we could get no subrogation. Had we got that subrogation, that money comes back to us, that reduces our mod factor. So you have these claims we didn't get reimbursed for, so that affects us. Our mod factor is, however, going down slightly, but Wendy was very excited, and at the first time in 3 or 4 years, we actually got a work comp dividend because in 2019 and 20, we've had good years. So it's just informing the board where we're at, small things in our big budget, but every time we get a work comp dividend, we typically credit that back to the departments, at least partially, to reward the departments that do good work. And it affects highway, health and human services, highway, sheriff, and waste energy the most.
One thing with that, a couple of years ago, it was decided to set up the workers' comp dividend in a carryover fund. So then that way, as we get those dividends, we can put that in, and then we use that to smooth out those years where, there's more costs.
Yeah. So finally, Ben, I just want to hit this just briefly in case you hear about this. Wisconsin Counties Association got a hold of both Jody and I. There is a narrow levy exemption in Wisconsin law that says if the state declares an emergency, the underlying governments that spend money that is not reimbursed, and those expenditures specifically identified that goes back to that state of emergency declared by the state, are exempt from the levy limit. So this is in the levy limit exemption law. We don't know where we, meaning Jody and I, don't know where this is gonna play out. It's something that could be considered a year from now when we're looking at our budget. So what this would really mean on a very broad sense is we had, and to make these numbers up, we had $2 million of direct COVID expenditures. We got 1.5 million in grant reimbursements. There's $500,000 that would be available to put on the tax levy. I'm giving you a very broad brush stroke. There's a lot more to come on this. I'm just informing you that it's an option. I'm not recommending that we do it. All these things are up in the air. We'll talk a lot more about it when we start planning for the 2022 budget. That's all I have.
And they are very fictitious numbers, because we don't want people to think we had $500,000 loss.
No, don't think, I'm just using that, everything's been covered to date, we're good.
Good. Okay, 17 appointments. None. 18 claims, petitions and correspondence. None. Suggestions for future items. We had the COVID update, and I just want to let you know that I'm working with Jeff right now on a succession plan for our county administrator. And I plan to, we'll present something. I informed executive of that yesterday, and plan to present something to executive and eventually to, if they approve it, to the county board. Because I think Jeff does an excellent job, and if it's something, he's a prolonged absence of his, or if he just took off on us, we need to know what we're gonna do. So, any other future agenda items? Okay, I guess then 12 or 10:16, we'll adjourn by unanimous consent. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.